Imagine you're walking down a quiet city sidewalk on an ordinary morning. Nothing unusual, nothing you're expecting. And then you notice something on the pavement. $100 bill. You look around. No one seems to be searching for it, so you pick it up. For a moment, you feel that little spark of unexpected good fortune. $100 you didn't have 30 seconds ago. You put it carefully in your wallet and continue walking. Later that afternoon, you reach into your pocket and stop. Your wallet is gone. You check the other pocket, your jacket, your bag. Nothing. Inside the wallet was the $100 you found that morning. Think about that for a moment. You began the day without the $100. You ended the day without the $100. Mathematically, nothing has changed. And yet, psychologically, something absolutely has. The pleasure of finding the money doesn't seem to equal the pain of losing it. Why? Why can losing something hurt more than gaining the exact same thing feels good? Because somewhere inside the machinery of the human mind, gains and losses are not treated equally. And once something becomes ours, losing it can change everything. We like to imagine that gains and losses sit on opposite sides of a perfectly balanced scale. Gain $100, feel good. Lose $100, feel equally bad. Simple, symmetrical, rational. Except that isn't generally how the human mind works. For many decisions, a loss carries more psychological weight than an equivalent gain. The possibility of losing something can motivate us more strongly than the possibility of acquiring something of equal value. And this quiet imbalance can influence what we buy, what we sell, what risks we take, and which risks we refuse to take. It can affect our investments, our negotiations, our possessions, our careers, and sometimes even the things we refuse to let go. Psychologists call this tendency loss aversion. And once you recognize it, you may begin noticing just how often the fear of losing quietly outweighs the hope of gaining. In the late 20th century, two psychologists began challenging one of the most basic assumptions about human decision-making. Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky. Traditional economic thinking often treated people as though we evaluated choices by calculating which outcome would leave us better off. But Kahneman and Tversky kept finding something more complicated. People didn't simply care about where they ended up. They cared deeply about where they started. A gain felt like movement above that starting point. A loss felt like movement below it. And those movements didn't feel equal. This insight became part of what Kahneman and Tversky called prospect theory. Rather than judging every outcome only by its final value, people often evaluate outcomes relative to a reference point. What do I already have? What did I expect to have? What do I believe belongs to me? Move above that point, and we experience a gain. Move below it, and we experience a loss. But here, the psychology becomes especially interesting. The emotional curve isn't symmetrical. The psychological impact of moving downward can be considerably stronger than the satisfaction of moving upward by the same amount. In other words, losing $100 can hurt more than gaining $100 feels good. And that asymmetry changes behavior. It can make us protect what we already possess. It can make us hesitate to trade something we own. It can make us avoid opportunities because accepting them would expose us to the possibility of loss. And under certain conditions, it can even make us take greater risks simply to avoid accepting a loss that has already appeared. The $100 never changed. Its mathematical value remained exactly the same. What changed was its relationship to us. First, it was something we could gain. Then, it became something we could lose. And somewhere between those two moments, the same $100 became psychologically more valuable. Not because the money changed, because we did. There is a strange moment when something becomes ours. Before that moment, it is simply an object, a coffee mug, a concert ticket, a piece of furniture, a house. Something we might want, something we might consider buying, something we might walk past without thinking about it again. But give that object to us, and something can change. Not in the object, in us. Imagine someone places a simple coffee mug in front of you. Nothing remarkable. You didn't choose it. You weren't searching for it. A few minutes ago, you didn't even know it existed. But now, someone tells you it's yours. You pick it up. Perhaps you turn it over in your hands. And almost immediately, the psychological relationship begins to change. It is no longer a mug. It is your mug. Now imagine someone sitting across from you wants to buy it. They offer you $3. You hesitate. $5. Still, you may not want to sell. And this is where something fascinating appears. Because another person who does not own the mug may look at exactly the same object and decide they would only pay $2 or $3 to acquire it. Same mug, same table, same moment, different value. The difference is ownership. Psychologists call this the endowment effect. Once we possess something, we can begin valuing it more highly simply because it belongs to us. And loss aversion helps explain why. Because selling the mug doesn't necessarily feel like exchanging one object for some money. It can feel like giving something up. And giving something up registers as a loss. This pattern was famously demonstrated in experiments involving ordinary objects, including coffee mugs. Participants who were given an object often demanded considerably more money to surrender it than other participants were willing to pay to acquire the very same thing. Ownership had changed the reference point. Before the mug belonged to them, not having it was normal. After it belonged to them, losing it became the change. And suddenly, the object carried psychological weight. But the effect reaches far beyond coffee mugs. Think about the possessions in your own life. An old watch, a piece of furniture, a car you've driven for years, a box of things sitting untouched in the basement, maybe even a house that has been part of your family for decades. Someone else may see only an object, You see something that is yours, and that distinction can quietly alter what you believe it is worth. Because sometimes the price we place on something isn't really the price of owning it. It's the price we would have to be paid to accept losing it. Once you understand that, loss aversion begins appearing almost everywhere. Consider investing. You buy a stock for $100. At first, $100 is your reference point. Then the stock rises to $150. And something subtle happens. That additional $50 begins to feel like yours. Your reference point moves. Now imagine the stock falls back to $120. You are still $20 ahead, but psychologically, you may not experience a $20 gain. You may experience a $30 loss. Because your mind isn't comparing the current price only to where you began. It may be comparing it to what you recently had. And that difference matters, because now you want the $30 back. So you wait. The stock falls again. You wait longer. Not necessarily because the investment still makes sense, but because selling would do something psychologically difficult. It would make the loss real. This is one reason people can hold losing investments long after the evidence suggests they should reconsider them. But the same pattern can appear far from Wall Street. Imagine you've spent 2 years working toward a particular career. You begin realizing it isn't making you happy. Another opportunity appears, perhaps even a better one. But leaving means accepting that the time you've already invested will never become what you hoped. So you stay. Or perhaps you've spent months negotiating a deal. The conditions change. The agreement no longer looks as attractive as it once did. But walking away feels like losing everything you've already put into it. The meetings, the effort, the expectation, the imagined outcome. So instead of asking, what is the best decision from here? We begin asking, how do I avoid losing what I've already invested? And those are not the same question. Loss aversion can even influence negotiations themselves. Imagine 2 people discussing the price of a house. To the buyer, every additional $10,000 feels like money being surrendered. To the seller, every $10,000 below the expected price can feel like money being taken away. Both people can experience themselves as losing, even though they are standing on opposite sides of the same transaction. That is one of the remarkable things about reference points. 2 people can look at exactly the same number and experience completely different psychological realities. And this is where loss aversion becomes more than an interesting quirk of human behavior, because the desire to avoid loss can sometimes become powerful enough to change the risks we are willing to take. When we are comfortably ahead, we may become cautious, protect what we have, take the safer path. But when we believe we are already losing, something can reverse. We may gamble, double down, hold on longer, take chances we might never have considered if we were starting from neutral ground. Not because we suddenly became different people, but because the question inside our minds quietly changed. It is no longer, what might I gain? It becomes, what am I willing to risk so I don't have to lose? Loss aversion becomes especially powerful when we don't realize that it has been activated. Because once something feels like ours, taking it away can become surprisingly difficult. Businesses understand this. Consider the free trial. You begin using a service without paying for it. At first, you're simply trying something. But over the next 30 days, you build playlists, save photographs, create folders, set preferences. Maybe you begin organizing part of your life around it. And then the trial ends. Now the decision isn't quite, would I like to buy this? The psychological question may have become, am I willing to give up what I already have? The product hasn't necessarily become better. Your reference point has changed. The same principle can appear when a company gives you features and later asks you to pay to keep them. Or when a store tells you a discount expires tonight. Or when a website quietly reminds you that only 2 rooms remain. Or that the item in your cart may soon be unavailable. Each message changes the psychological frame. You are no longer merely considering something you might acquire. You may begin imagining something you are about to lose. And once the mind crosses that boundary, the decision can feel different. But loss aversion doesn't require someone deliberately manipulating us. We create reference points all by ourselves. A salary we have grown accustomed to, a position we have held for years, a lifestyle that now feels normal, a reputation we believe we possess, a relationship we have built part of our identity around. Once these things become part of the psychological status quo, change can feel like loss, even when the change might eventually make life better. And that is why loss aversion can sometimes disguise itself as prudence. We tell ourselves we're being careful, responsible, patient, realistic. And sometimes we are. But sometimes what feels like caution is simply the mind protecting its reference point, protecting what it has already decided belongs to us. So what do we do with a bias this deeply rooted? Probably not eliminate it. Loss aversion exists for a reason. For most of human history, protecting what we already possessed could matter enormously. Food, shelter, resources, safety. The goal isn't to become indifferent to loss. The goal is to recognize when the fear of losing has begun making the decision for us. And one surprisingly useful question can create distance. Instead of asking, what will I lose if I change? Ask, if I didn't already have this, would I choose it today? The question sounds simple, but notice what it does. It temporarily removes ownership. It moves the reference point. Imagine the investment again. Forget what you paid. Forget its highest price. Forget how much you once believed it might become worth. If you had the money in cash right now, would you buy this investment today? Or the career? If you were standing outside it with everything you know now, would you choose to enter? The deal. If no meetings had occurred, no hours had been invested, no expectations had formed, would these terms still deserve your yes? Sometimes the answer will still be yes, and then holding on may be exactly right. But sometimes the answer changes. Not because we suddenly know the future, but because for a moment we have stopped asking the past to justify the next decision. Another useful question is, what would I advise someone else to do? Someone who doesn't own the stock, who didn't spend 2 years building the career, who hasn't spent months negotiating the deal. Distance can change perspective. The point isn't to ignore everything you've invested. It is to notice when protecting what was has begun determining what comes next. Think again about the $100 bill on the sidewalk. When you first saw it, it was possibility, nothing more. You could pick it up or keep walking. Then you held it, placed it in your wallet, and somewhere in that small, almost meaningless act, the reference point changed. It became yours. And once it became yours, losing it hurt more than finding it had pleased you. The bill never changed. Its value never changed. What changed was the invisible line between what you considered yours and what you considered gone. We draw those lines everywhere. Around money, possessions, careers, relationships, status, expectations, even versions of ourselves. And perhaps that is the deeper lesson of loss aversion. Sometimes the hardest thing to surrender isn't the thing itself. It's the belief that because something once belonged to us, it must continue to belong to us. So the next time you find yourself holding tightly to an investment, a possession, an opportunity, a plan, or simply the way things used to be, perhaps ask yourself one quiet question. Am I choosing this because it is still what I want? Or because I am afraid of what it would feel like to let it go? Sometimes the difference between those two questions is the difference between protecting what matters and simply being afraid to lose.